Good morning, everyone. My name is Loredana Dici, and I'm working for the European Disability Forum, and I will be your moderator today. Welcome to all of you. You are at the webinar on impact of volunteering, inclusive volunteering, and social entrepreneurial skills, which is part of the VVT project. So before starting with the webinar, I would like to introduce you some housekeeping rules. So first of all, it is important to know that we have sign language interpretation available, international sign language. We do have captioning, which link you can find in the chat box. We will present it to you also in a minute on a slide, on a separate slide. And when you click on that link, you will be brought to a page where you can see the captioning. Okay, so on your screen during the webinar, you will see the sign language interpreter and only the speaker who is speaking at that particular time. Yes, then it is important to know that the presentations are available in the handouts. You have a handout section that you can see on your screen, and there you can download all available presentations. You can, of course, do the same from your mobile phones. And as attendees, you are all muted during the webinar. And if you want to communicate with us, the only way to do so is for technical issues, please drop us a message in the chat box. And for any questions linked to the content, so if you want to address a question to one of our speakers, please drop it in the question box. At the end of the webinar, after all the speakers have the opportunity to take the floor, we will have some time to answer your questions. We are going to record this webinar, so after some days you will be able to access it again in a form of an accessible video with subtitling, and we will provide also on our website the video and all presentations and the script. So you will be notified, of course, via email, and then also on our website this will be available. So coming back to our project, maybe if it's possible, yeah, we have the slide again with the link, so please make sure that you are clicking on the good link for the captioning. It is now on the slide available for those one needing it. So I'm going to before starting giving the floor to the speakers, I would like to give you a couple of words about our project. The VVT project, which is about volunteering, and particularly this webinar on inclusive volunteering and social entrepreneurial skills. The main aim of our project is to create a community of practice made up of EU organizations working towards disability inclusive in humanitarian actions and volunteering. This time, for this webinar, we would like to start a discussion about what happens after a volunteering project experience? Do volunteers become more empathic or feel more determined to tackle a social issue such as disability and inclusion? What can program managers do to enhance those skills and engagement? So during this webinar, we will also give you a short introduction to the field of social entrepreneurship in this context. And volunteering becomes more and more important for sure. I myself, I came to Belgium as a volunteer in 2005, and I'm as a European volunteer. And if I am where I am today, working at the European Disability Forum and being so active in the disability field, it is thanks to this thing, to this experience that I had, which was really wonderful. And it was not easy because I was like first pilot person for such kind of volunteering experiences in Europe for visually impaired. But let's not take too long and give the floor to our guests. So first of all, we will have Miss Rebecca Daniel, talent program analyst from UN Volunteers Talent Program for young professionals with disabilities. And
thank you very much, Loredana. Should I start already?
And Rebecca, please, the floor is yours. And thank you for coming today with us. And I would like to ask you a little bit, can you explain what is about this program? How can this help volunteers? And yes, how did you come to this program, and how do you work in it? Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you very much, Loredana, for the very nice introduction. Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to be here on this webinar today with you to introduce you to our UNDP talent program for young professionals with disabilities, and also to disability inclusion efforts of UN volunteers in general. I'm probably going more into this aspect of inclusive volunteering in general, and would like to share some of the examples and learnings that we've had so far. But I'm also happy to share some of my impressions when it comes to impact through this inclusive volunteering and potential social entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial skills after the service. So glad to be with you. And to respond to your question, Loredana, I would probably first share a little bit about my role in UNV, and then our mandate, and then introduce you briefly to this program I'm talking about. So I'm, as you mentioned, talent program analyst. I work for UN volunteers since almost 2 years and joined as a disability inclusion focal point for the organization. I'm based in Bonn, the UNV headquarters. And to show you a little bit what UNV is doing, I would go to the next slide, the role of UNV. So we work under a dual mandate. First, to mobilize volunteers for the UN system. That means different UN entities reach out to UNV asking for professionals that can support them in different areas of work that are related to the inclusive and general development work of the UN system. Our second mandate is to advocate for the importance of volunteerism in development worldwide. And also in that sense, we of course also advocate for the importance of leaving no one behind in volunteerism for development. UND started in 2017 roughly to think more focused on disability inclusion. That was just before I joined. And realized that amongst the UN volunteers, there were not so many that had disclosed the disability, and also data on inclusion within our own program was missing. So with an aim to increase the inclusion of persons with disabilities into the workforce of the development sector, we started jointly together with UNDP, which is the organization administering us, to set up a joint talent program for young professionals with disabilities. And with this program, we also wanted to build a talent pipeline of professionals with disabilities that can contribute to the attainment of the SDGs at national and global levels. So we also look definitely into this aspect of what do the volunteers do after their UN volunteer service, which usually lasts 1 to 2 years. However, since the program is very young, you will realize that there's not so much I can share yet about the experiences with the volunteers after their service, since so far almost all of them got an extension of their contracts and they are still serving. So I'm going to focus more on our experiences with this inclusive volunteering and on recommendations, how it can work in a good manner. But in order not to just speak about the program and its participants, I would like to let our participants themselves speak first. And kindly, Diana, asking you to show the video from your ends, because we realized otherwise the sound is not working very well. I recommend all of you to raise the volume a little bit on your own computers, because the sound of the video is rather low. So I will give you a short break after the video has played so that you can reduce the volume again.
I am from
Diana, we cannot hear the video now. I think the sound is completely off. Maybe you can start again.
Okay, sorry, I just start again then.
It played at the beginning. There was a sound.
Sorry. So I just started again.
My name is Alexander Avdievich. I am from Belarus.
Mr. Sharma, I'm from India.
I'm Gift Kowere from Zimbabwe.
My name is Đào Thanh Hương. I'm Vietnamese. I'm a national volunteer working as the Disability Rights Officer at UNDP Vietnam.
I work with the UN volunteerism in Zambia as a national coordinating officer. My main priority area is working towards the inclusion and participation of persons with disabilities.
I was fascinated with the fact that UN actually has a program which involves people with disabilities to become volunteers and to make their impact to their countries and communities.
Joining the talent program for young persons with disabilities is very much support in terms of giving the opportunity for me to come to the UN organization so that I can learn more about how the UN organization works, and also the opportunity for me to learn the big data, of course.
And the talent program in general is very welcoming or responding to the reasonable accommodation. Means that with my power, I think out of disabilities, there is nothing that should keep anyone from applying for it.
So I hope that this program will be expanded in the years to come and to bring many other talented people with disabilities on board to share the Wonderful message, but leave no one behind.
Inclusion is our future.
To date, UNV has deployed 15 volunteers with disabilities under the Talent Program and another 16 in regular assignments.
We are inspiration in action.
UNDP UNV Talent Program for Young Professionals with Disabilities offers international work experience in a variety of technical areas. Join us.
Thank you very much, Diana, and apologies for the bad sound. So we will work on improving that for the next time. So let me get back to the presentation. Yes, please.
I just thought that you can present again. So
yes.
I give you the floor.
Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Great. So yeah, these were some impressions from the talent program, and at the very end, one of the participants, no, actually it was the movie maker, mentioned the number of participants to date, which is almost 1 year ago. And luckily, by now, we have much more than the 30 participants. Right now, we have 71 people with disabilities deployed. And these are the numbers of those that have self-disclosed their disability. I assume that the number of volunteers with disabilities participating overall is higher. But I want to go to the experiences right away that we've made so far. We realized that it is really important to guarantee the success of the process that we adjust all steps of the volunteering. We call it volunteering management cycle. That we have sufficient resources, both when it comes to staff and budget. That we have a clear, good communication, and I will share some of the considerations regarding communication as well after this slide. We also realized that specific considerations are needed when it comes to capacity development of the host entities, of the volunteers in parts, and also of UN Volunteers itself as organization. We also learned a lot about how to evaluate experiences and what is needed, as well as networking, the importance of networking. I will briefly go into each of these learnings and share some of the examples of good practice examples and maybe also bad practice examples we can learn from. So when it comes to inclusive language and accessible information or communication, we realize that we still have so many barriers in the UN system, including our own organization. And since we deploy UN volunteers with so many different UN entities, this has become quite a challenging task to tackle. But it's very rewarding if you see that things are moving forward and more your communication and information is getting more accessible. So we looked into how do we communicate? What do we use? Which tools do we use? Which platforms do we use? And are they really reaching our target group? Especially when we did outreach, that was quite challenging at times to find the right people at the right place with the right means of communication. But I will say more about that afterwards. Then also to communicate the right content that is relevant to really reach the target group and to really attract people with disabilities for our program. And last not least, the formats of our communication, again, going back mainly to inaccessibility of our platforms, of our web pages, of many of our outreach materials, and lack of sensitivity or awareness in the system on how to provide accessible information to people with disabilities, not only when it comes to blind people and the screen reading software, also when it comes to sign language, closed captioning, alternative formats of applications and information. When it comes to the process of outreach and we don't call our post job descriptions, but descriptions of assignments. We realized it's very important to really clearly talk about our motivation to host persons with disabilities or to deploy persons with disabilities. If not, many people with disabilities would feel like they are not meant, they are not attracted, and they are not part of the target group. Also, to show previous commitment and experience, and to really make sure that we show some peer examples from other volunteers with disabilities that have already served as a UNV. And this is described also in our descriptions of assignments in parts. We communicate the accessibility or the level of accessibility of the host entity. And we also assess that clearly before we draft the description of assignment, so that it really expresses clearly that persons with disabilities are welcome to apply. And we have a twin track approach in that. So while we create specific assignments which are solely reserved for persons with disabilities, we also want to make sure that all the assignments become, or all the descriptions of assignments become welcoming for persons with disabilities as a mainstreaming effort. When doing outreach, we reach out to the organizations of persons with disabilities in our network. We cooperate with EDF, also with the International Disability Alliance, and other big and also local networks, depending on where we have an assignment available. And to really make sure that we find the right format, like I have put a picture here, which describes a little bit what it's relevant. We had photos beforehand as well, which were not so much relevant for the presentation, just decorative. But this photo describes a group of people sitting around a table. There are a few people in a wheelchair, maybe somebody who's blind wearing glasses, maybe some with invisible disabilities. And the situation is a training, or rather a webinar session, information session about an open assignment of UNV. And we invited people in Dominican Republic to come to the office to get informed about available position, and then to really ask direct questions on accessibility and the available assignment. So this was a very good practice example. And in the photo, there's even the volunteer who got deployed later on. So that's quite nice to see that she was already there right from the beginning. We also look into how to make interview processes more inclusive in order to really make sure that we don't simply reproduce biases and stereotypes, stigmas, to make sure that the interview process is giving an equal opportunity to every attendee. And in that regard, we especially again look into accessibility and also in making reasonable accommodation during the interview, or if it's a written test, during the written test. So usually we have.
Yes. There would be 2 more minutes just to let you know. Okay. I'm sorry, time is flying.
Okay, all right. Okay. So I cannot introduce each slide then. I'm sorry for that. I thought we have 10 more minutes. So then that was wrong timing from my end. So I will not share into detail. You can definitely download this presentation, look into the recommendations. Maybe I share just one more thing on assessing needs, reasonable accommodation needs at the office, which has proven to be a very crucial part of our program and the offer. And we want to make sure that we really closely together work with the host entity office to provide for reasonable accommodation, both at the workplace, but also when it comes to housing and commute to the office. And for all of this, of course, you need sufficient resources and good capacitated staff. And we made especially use of a buddy system of people supporting the volunteer during his or her assignment, and of the supervisory role of the role of other staff members helping the volunteer with disability. So Last not least, all these experiences have been evaluated both internally and by an external evaluator. You can also read the evaluation report online. I'm happy to share a link with you in the chat if you're interested in more experiences from evaluation perspective though. And with this, I would like to hand over to all of you for your questions on our program. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. This is indeed very informative. And yes, outreach is one of the main challenges, because if you don't know that it exists and that as persons with disabilities, you're a person with disability, you are very welcome and you will be properly accommodated regarding your accessibility requirements. Many persons are afraid to take the step and engage in such a project. And I'm not going to take longer, and I will pass the floor to Namchok Patson, yeah, I'm sorry for mispronouncing the name. He's a UN volunteer talent program for young professionals with disabilities. And what is even more important, he will tell also us about what he did as a result of his experience. And you have been in Armenia doing your project, and please tell us how did this experience influence you and what did you do afterwards? Thank you so much, and the floor is to you, and you have maximum 10 minutes, but it's really maximum. Thanks.
Hello everyone. So I hope you can see my slide, right? So let me introduce myself. My name is Namchok Petsan. So I am from Thailand. So I want to share my experience about UNDP, UNV under the talent program for young person with disabilities. So I will start with my motivation first. So I want to say that why I participate in the UNV. Before that, I have a question that I lost my screen. Sorry. Excuse me. I don't see my presentation. Okay. Okay. The first thing is that I see the concept of leaving no one behind. So I really want to learn more about what is leaving no one behind. So I just do the Google and then looking more for the program. And then I better understand that, okay, I have to join the program and be part of the UN system. And I want to be part of engaging with the young talent program with disabilities that to achieve for the September development goals for the next 10 years. And I understand that this program welcome young person with disabilities into the workplace. So that I really much looking forward what is inside the program, and then how can I be part of it. So I think it's a good opportunity for me to attend to the program, and then also to be part of a national and a global level.
Namchok, we cannot see your slides anymore. Can you open it again, please?
Okay. Now you see my slides?
No.
Can you? Can stop and sharing my screen again, please?
Yes, just a second. You are the presenter, Namchok, so you should
okay.
be. Yeah, you can see it now. Yeah,
okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So, okay, I will continue for, okay, so let's continue for sharing experience. with my UNV in Armenia. I lost my slide, excuse me. Okay, do you see my slide now?
No, you lost your slides again.
Do you see now?
No.
Sorry. Do you see now?
No, sorry, just I'm gonna try something. Just a second. You are presenting again, Namchuk, so we should see your slides.
I hope you can see now. Okay.
Yes, we can see it. Perfect. Thank you.
So, okay, I
I
will
just
share my
need to
experience.
find it. You can download the slides from the hands-on sections if anybody would like to read it. Thank you.
Okay, I was sharing my experience as the UN volunteer in Armenia. So I start for the UN volunteer in February 2019 by starting for the UN volunteer for data analysis officer at the SDG Innovation Lab in Armenia. So at that time, I was joining to be part of the team to develop the demo website with the data scientist to come with the ideas to do data analysis for the project for education to work. So it's the main part of the scraping data from the online website and then collect all the data and visualize data to find out what is the most demand job in Armenia in the future and also in the past. And also at that time, I was having opportunity to raising disability awareness and promote inclusive working environment in the UN system and also in Armenia. It was a good opportunity for me that to get connected with the leaders in Armenia and better understand what they are doing for persons with disabilities. And most importantly, to start the idea of inclusive working environment in the UN system. Before that, I went to Armenia, the UN house in Armenia. I cannot access to every floor of the UN house. And then we just raising that we should have the elevator. And then after that, we have elevator to access to each floor of the UN house in Armenia. So it was really good starting point to get the concept of inclusive working environment in the UN system. So I was in Armenia for 1 year and 1 month, and then I have to back to Thailand. At that time, it was the pandemic, and then I have to come back to Thailand. And then Rebecca, as mentioned earlier, that I have to continue my assignment. So today I start my assignment with the UNV in Bangkok for the UNV communication assistant, mainly focused for the multimedia and graphics with the UNV communication assistant in Asian and the Pacific. So my job is to support communication team to develop the social media banners, videos, infographic, so that we can use for social media posting and to promote all campaigns we have in the UN system. And this is a good time for me to raising disability awareness to promote an inclusive working environment in the UN system, because it's really challenging time for me because right now it's a pandemic and I have to work from home. So everything is working online. So I have to make sure that I raising some part of person with disabilities in the system so that we can integrate somehow that person with disabilities be part of the UN system and also the project we are working on. So this is mainly for the UN volunteer that I really much looking for more detail and to share more experience in the future if I have opportunity to share with us. So for the next slide, I will sharing my ideas about my startup project that I have experience working with friends with disabilities in Thailand. So we started a project called For All Able, which is the platform that we collect all the data that is for accessible destination for the tourism concept. So we have starting for this one for a few years, for collecting data, and now we are in the process of develop the platform and also the application. So the main concept of this one is to collect all the data that is accessible for persons with disabilities. For example, hotels, restaurants, toilets, and also transportation that's accessible, so we can present what is a good thing about that location. In finally, we are planning to launch the project in March 2021. So we are working really hard with the team in Thailand, and all the project for this one was developed by persons with disabilities, and I am the father of this project, and I'm very much looking forward if we have the project and then we can share the ideas and the concept with persons with disabilities. So after this one, and then I will share the link with all our friends, and then we can access to the platform in March 2021. So, and then we can share ideas, input more data, and then be part of the working platform and then become the inclusive business for everyone that we want to be part of. So that is the overall I want to share for today. And any questions and comment, welcome.
Thank you so much to share your experience with us. And yeah, it is amazing how what effect had this experience on you, and how a nice what a nice project you have developed. Thank you so much. And I'm sure there will come many questions, and you gave now for sure to many young people, young professionals, really the will to go and participate in such a project and believe stronger in their dreams, because they can be indeed made come true. Thank you so much. So now I'm going to introduce you the last speaker of today. This is Dr. Tanya Kovallo, who has a PhD in social entrepreneurship, and she's engaged in a research and in impact management at the Cambridge Judge Business School. Her doctoral research focused on how networks of heterogeneous stakeholders are managed within the social entrepreneurship sector, within the in the sector. And well, Tanya had her doctoral thesis on social entrepreneurship, and I think you can for sure share many things with us. And today, specifically, we would be interested about the key concepts that are needed to develop the social entrepreneurship skills. And she will also, I hope that you will also share some thoughts of how volunteering can help us to gain or improve those skills. So Tanya, I don't take longer from your time. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for coming today and sharing all this with us.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Loredana, and thank you all for inviting me. And I'm Tanya. It's very nice to meet you all virtually. I'm sorry we can't see each other, or at least I can't see you, but I hope you will find this talk interesting. I think that today I'm kind of here to close the circle. So you heard already a lot of interesting things about volunteering, and I'm kind of here to complete the equation and tell you something about social entrepreneurship. I've been engaging with social entrepreneurship now for the past 7 years. First, I studied the social entrepreneurship sector as part of my PhD, and now I'm teaching social entrepreneurship for the University of Oxford Department of Continuing Education, and that's how I ended up here. We could talk about social entrepreneurship, to be honest, for the entire morning, because it's a very fascinating and complex topic. But I'll try to be brief and get to the point, which for me today is what social entrepreneurship is, so kind of give an overview of this phenomenon and then relate it to the world of volunteering. So social entrepreneurship is a relatively new phenomenon. It was born in the late 1990s, early 2000s, and it's kind of sitting in between the three traditional sectors. What do I mean with this? I mean that it's trying to compensate for the failures of these three traditional sectors, and it is trying to do so by combining characteristics of each of them. So it uses an entrepreneurial spirit and revenue-generating business models like the business sector. It tries to support people, empower them, include them in society like the third sector would do. And it attempts to provide services in aspects like healthcare, education, and the like, which we would normally consider as a duty of the public sector, especially here in Europe. Social entrepreneurship has lots of different definitions, and I could tell you about definitions for the next 2 hours. But for today's purposes, I would like you to give a definition of a social entrepreneurship that I think encompasses all the key characteristics that are mentioned in these different definitions. And that is, social entrepreneurship is an activity pursued by an individual or an organization that has as a main goal the delivery of social impact, and that does so with entrepreneurial characteristics. And these entrepreneurial characteristics can take the form either of a revenue-generating business model, of a highly innovative approach, or of the inclusion of stakeholders into decision-making and profit sharing. As you can probably realize from this definition, the spectrum of activity of social entrepreneurship is very broad. And it goes from pure for-profit activities to pure no-profit activities and anything in between. To kind of pin down this spectrum, I thought I would give you a couple of examples of what happens at each side of this spectrum. On the for-profit side, we've got cooperatives and we've got WISEs, which are basically social enterprises that are profit maximizing, like a traditional business would be, but for example, try to employ people with mental or physical disabilities, or that would be social outcasts like ex-convicts, and give them an opportunity to contribute to society and to earn a living that they wouldn't have otherwise. On the other side, in the non-profit area, we've got charities, like for example, Oxfam or Save the Children, that are traditional charities and NGOs, but then set up side activities like the opening of shops, online or physical, to sell goods, to sell secondhand clothes, handmade gifts, that basically are useful for them to then gain revenues that subsidize their core mission. Or again, we've got very innovative nonprofits like Rather for Health that come up with completely new ways of tackling a social issue. They still remain a charity, but they kind of transform the way something is provided to people in need. And not only social entrepreneurship operates in this very wide spectrum, and you're welcome to ask questions later on if you want more details about the different bits of the spectrum, but it also operates in many different sectors. Here I just put some examples of sectors where you might find social enterprises, and they range from the environment to sport, education, housing, arts and culture, agriculture, protection of human rights, and so on and so forth. And to give you kind of a more practical feel of what this means, what social enterprises can do in these different sectors, I thought I would share with you the example of Kimuli Fashionability. And I apologize if I didn't pronunciate the name correctly, because I'm not sure about that. But basically, Kimuli Fashionability, I think it's a fascinating social enterprise that operates in Uganda. And what they do is that they pursue what in theory we call the triple bottom line. So they pursue simultaneously financial sustainability, social impact, and environmental impact. And how do they do so? So basically, they are a fashion company. They produce and sell clothes and fashion accessories, and that's how they got their financial sustainability. But then they do it in a very special way. So they do it by employing and training people with disabilities and helping them become tailors, sewers, and leverage their disability to be excellent in these fields. And they also do it by using recycled materials, and in particular plastics, this way reducing the environmental impact of waste. Stories like that of Kimberly, I think, are kind of shining a light on the power of social entrepreneurship. But what I think it's important to think about is that social entrepreneurship has both advantages, but also disadvantages. And I think it's important to keep an eye on both. So in terms of advantages, I think social entrepreneurship is excellent in terms of catalyzing resources from all the three sectors that compose its hybrid form. And it's also a cool concept that attracts a lot of young people into the third sector. I mean, I work in 2 different business schools, and in both of them, young students come in super motivated to become social entrepreneurs. And the number of young people who want to become social entrepreneurs is increasing, which is great. And also social enterprises can get diversified funding. So again, they are a bit a business, they are a bit a charity. So usually they can get access to different types of support, such as grants, donations, revenues, investment, loans. And in periods like this one, this increases the probability of survival. They can also get access to a special support infrastructure, like there's a lot of networks in Europe, in the US, in Asia, that support specifically social entrepreneurs and enterprises. And this is a kind of thing that traditional entrepreneurs, for example, might not get access to. And finally, I think it's important to mention that social entrepreneurs and enterprises often try to empower their beneficiaries rather than just helping them. And they tend to be more flexible than large charities and public sector bodies in adjusting to the changing needs of these beneficiaries, because they're closer to them, they're more entrepreneurial, and they're more agile. However, social entrepreneurship has disadvantages too. In a lot of situations, social entrepreneurs need to decide whether to privilege profits and financial sustainability in order to survive, or delivering more or better social impact to the people they want to help. And it's very difficult to find a balance between these two goals. And sometimes this provokes what we call the mission drift. So a social enterprise has a higher risk than a charity to give up its social impact in order to survive financially. There's also still a low public awareness. A lot of people still have no idea what social entrepreneurship means. And this makes it difficult for social entrepreneurs and enterprises to explain their value, both to customers, beneficiaries, and supporters. They also sometimes have difficulties in accessing talent, especially managerial talent, because obviously they can't pay as much as traditional businesses. And they also suffer from a low availability of startup funds. So I was just saying before that they actually have an advantage because they can access diversified funding. But that is true only once they are established. In the phase between having an idea and transforming that into reality, social entrepreneurs and enterprises actually struggle in finding support in a lot of cases. And they also have difficulties in measuring their impact, which again makes it difficult to prove how good they are or to help them develop so that they can get better. And finally, 2 very important points that keep being raised when talking about social entrepreneurship is that very few social enterprises manage to achieve scale. So even after 30 years of social entrepreneurship, there's very few examples of social enterprises that reach a nationwide or international scope. And at the same time, social entrepreneurs suffer from a special emotional fatigue, which is the fear of not only failing as an entrepreneur, but most importantly, failing to help those in need and that relied on their social enterprise to get access to certain goods and services. So why are we talking about this today? Well, I think there's a strong overlap between social entrepreneurship and volunteering. Social entrepreneurship relies heavily on volunteers. It's one of the ways that allows these enterprises to kind of reach the financial sustainability while still delivering good impact. Social entrepreneurship can also be an excellent solution to support people with disabilities and those who are struggling, because it allows you to employ them and to train them and not just to kind of help them. And finally, I think, especially in these times when public funds are diminishing and also corporate support is diminishing for charitable organizations, by having a diversified portfolio of funding, social enterprises might have a higher chance of survival. Most importantly, I would like to stress, if you ever think of becoming social entrepreneurs, that being a volunteer provides you with the perfect skills to be a successful one. And that's because a lot of the characteristics that make up a successful social entrepreneur are characteristics that you would naturally develop when you volunteer. For example, you develop a passion and you are pushed by a passion for helping others if you are a volunteer. And you also develop empathy because you're always in touch with people who suffer, with people who are less lucky than you are. And this means that you start to understand them, feel their pain, and that is fundamental to be a good social entrepreneur. Similarly, you get knowledge of the problem. You get knowledge of what works in your sector, what doesn't, and therefore you get knowledge of what the solution should be. And that's another key thing. And then finally, by already being involved in a certain sector, you have a network, and the network will be fundamental to achieve the resources and financial support that you need to start. And then you can take it from there. So here I have a short summary of what an entrepreneurial journey looks like, usually for a social entrepreneur. It usually starts with living the problem, feeling it, learning about it, and then identifying an opportunity to solve it. Then it's time to think how you're gonna solve it operationally, organizationally. So you need to come up with an organizational structure, choose a legal form, which for social enterprises is very difficult because the options are many. You need to develop a theory of change and business model in order to be able to attract support and resources. And then you need to get these resources to operationalize your idea. And then finally, social entrepreneurship is about continuously adjusting. So continuously asking for feedback to all stakeholders, see what's working, see what isn't, and then keeping on adjusting to what your beneficiaries first, and then the rest of the stakeholders need. So where can you start if you want to enter the world of social entrepreneurship? I would have 3 main suggestions for you. You can either volunteer for a social enterprise, and I think that's the best way to understand how they work, what their struggles are, what their strong points are. Alternatively, you can try to get in touch with a local support network. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of support networks in any country. I'm mostly aware of UK ones, obviously due to my studies. But I know for sure that in all European countries and even in some others, there are dedicated networks that support social entrepreneurs and enterprises. The European Union itself provides support to social entrepreneurship through grant funding. So that's an excellent way to start. You can meet other social entrepreneurs. For example, there is impact hubs all over the world, and there you can meet fellow social entrepreneurs and again, learn from them how this all works. Or finally, you can just Google, find resources online about social entrepreneurship, and I would suggest entrepreneurship more broadly. Because a lot of the people that enter the sector, they are moved by the passion to help others, as I was saying, by the desire to make social impact, but they tend to lack business skills. And unfortunately, while a lot of us think that maybe business is not the solution for a lot of things, and sometimes is the problem, having business skills is fundamental to ensure the survival of your organization and the efficient and effective use of resources. So I think it's very important, if you do already have the social passion inside yourself, to also gather some business skills to make a difference. Thank you very much, and you can find me on LinkedIn if you want more information about the sector or keep the discussion going. And I'm also happy now to get some questions in the Q&A time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tanya. And yes, volunteering teaches us many things, and for sure, if we want to start our own entrepreneurship, that's for sure a very good experience, and that will be very helpful, as you just said. So we have heard about a wonderful program today, the UN volunteering program. So the program which is called Talent for Young Professionals. We have heard someone who participated in the program, and we have seen what just Tanya has explained to us, how his experience led him to develop his own enterprise. So this is fantastic. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, our time is almost over, and I will give the floor to my colleague Diana. And Diana, can you, maybe we will see how much time we still have left, but certainly at least one question. And for all the other questions, you will get a reply either now immediately or make sure that you will receive a reply via email from us, and we will make available all these answers because maybe other people are also interested in that. So, Jana?
So I would like to ask one question we had from the audience, and this is for Rebecca. And the person is asking about the support that the UNV provides. Do you have a budget provision for full-time salary of professional assistant? It is the most important aspect for many disabled people.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you very much for that question. And yes, indeed, we also do have this kind of provision. So we have persons with disabilities serving with different kind of assisting needs. Some of them needed a personal assistant only for the beginning of the service as an orientation or mobility training. And we also have one UN volunteer at the moment, for example, who needs 24 hours assistance. So there's a wide range of different assistance needs. And I would recommend you to, at the moment, to apply for a specific assignment under our program for professionals with disabilities, as then the funding can be guaranteed to a much wider extent. While if it's not a specific assignment, we are still dependent more on the capacities of the host entity to support with the assistance at the workplace. So it's just to show that there's a big will and there's always budget for it, but the extent of the budget and the possibilities, it still unfortunately differs a little bit depending on if you apply on a streamlined assignment, a mainstreamed assignment, or on a specific one. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, for your answer. And Diana, do we still have time?
No, unfortunately, we are running out of time.
Yes.
So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much, Diana, for reading out the question, and thank you for answering the question, Rebecca. So I would like today to thank all of you who participated in this webinar, who attended. You will receive afterwards a notification about the video, and you will receive also a survey about, and we would like to ask you to answer it to see if we can improve or not. Then we would like, I would like to thank you so much to all the three speakers of today. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, for sharing with us about such interesting programs, volunteering opportunities, and to learn about social entrepreneurship. I would like to thank you very, very much for our interpreters, Lisa, Bo, and Christine, because without you, this would not be accessible for persons needing sign language. I would like to thank very much Tracy for our captioner, and would like to thank you very much for my colleagues at the technical desk, let's say, Diana and Marion. A big thank you to you. And I wish to all of you an excellent day. Today we have another webinar later, so if you are interested, join us and check our events on the website of EDF. Maybe Diana, you can include quickly the link. And if you are interested, we have many other interesting online events upcoming. Thank you. Have a very nice day and see you next time. Bye.